Hello and welcome to another episode of the Snap Chatter Marvel Snap podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Logan.
And I'm the other one, Nate.
Nate, my dude, it's been a week since we've last recorded. I'm assuming people really enjoyed that lore card episode. I won't know because of when we're recording this, literally right after episode 3. So we'll just pretend people really enjoyed it. We're like, oh my gosh, wow, that's one of the best ones yet. Man, thank you all for your kind words and your support.
I think it's going to be hit, man. I'm stoked to hear it. And I feel like I generally have pretty good taste. I mean,
I would say
that's
so.
not me being humble or anything, It's
No. I mean, it's not like you being anti-humble if I'm backing it up, right? It's totally like I'm supporting it. Yeah, you have great taste.
We're both being like super, super humble, and
we're so humble. It's like Drax in, what was it, Avengers or something, where he's like, I too am very humble.
Humility. I like it. I too am extraordinarily humble.
Exactly.
That's just us right now. We're just on theme for
we
Guardians
too are very humble.
Yes. Speaking of Guardians, man, so in regards to the movies, right? We probably won't talk about the movies a whole lot on this podcast because it's, tangentially related because it's Marvel themed. Are you looking forward to the new Guardians at all? Guardians Volume 3?
Guardians has historically been my favorite franchise in the Marvel.
Okay.
Like I tend to be a bit of an outlier. So, okay, I have a contrarian bend. I tend to if everybody else thinks something is cool, I'm kind of like, no, that sucks. It's trash.
Is that why you don't like Iceman and Scorpion so much?
No, they suck. They just suck. They're just trash, man. And I've gotten better with that over the years, but sometimes I come out pretty hard. I'm kind of looking forward to Quantumania. I know it's been pretty scattered reviews, but I liked Ant-Man and the Wasp a lot. I had fun with those. I like Paul Rudd's a freaking treasure.
Real funny dude.
And so I think the Guardians movies, I really thought Volume 1 was an absolute delight. Volume 2 was really solid. I don't know. I think it's unfortunate because a lot of the Marvel movies, I think, took too many notes from Guardians and sort of trying to be a little too clever, a little too funny, a little too cute by half. But I like the Guardians movie. So I'm stoked. I'm gonna watch it.
Yeah. I just remember watching the first trailer they put out and just watching Drax just peg a kid with a dodgeball or something in it. I'm like, yeah, I'm probably going to like this movie a little too much with being a high school teacher. And it might be a little cathartic to watch that. I don't know if I should say that on a podcast, but I'm just saying it looks to be a very funny movie and a very good time for the whole family. Right. So,
but especially really good. Me.
But especially me. Just love Drax, man. He's a good time. He's a good time. But speaking of Guardians and things that have nothing to do with it, I mean, kind of tangentially, but we're going to be talking about the Marvel Snap economy has been a bit of a wild card, so to speak. Maybe it's not one that's been necessarily fun to play either. And that's what we're going to talk about here on this episode. Now, just being completely self-aware that we're recording this episode on February 22nd. And by the time this episode releases, there could be some really good changes to the economy within Marvel Snap. So just keep all that in mind as you listen in case, they do make some radical changes that are really good. And, you're listening to this prior to those changes if they make those.
They'll be listening to this and be like, Logan and they have no idea what they're actually talking about. And you're not wrong.
Right. It's like they're from another multiverse. Let's just keep it on par with Marvel. We're from Earth. What is it? 616? Is that the one that I can't remember?
Sure.
We'll go with it. But Nate, let's just dive into it, man. Let's talk about the Marvel Snap economy because I have to be completely honest. And we were talking about this a little bit before recording this episode, is that it's not as bad as what it could be. I have been very what's the word? Vocal about mobile games on my other podcast, The Reformed Gamers, that I hate mobile games. I hate their monetization methods. I just hate how they're structured. Clash Royale is a good example where like they just slowly kind of get money out of you a little bit here and there, just with little things like, oh, it's just $1 to get this amount of gems. Like, I can spend $1 here. It's like, it's just $1 to get this. It's like, I can spend $1. Pretty soon you've spent $50 and you're like, wait, what just happened? You know, it's that little sneaky effect that they just kind of slowly draw money out of you without you realizing it. But Marvel Snap is not necessarily like that. It can be if you're impatient, but they have things in place to kind of keep you from spending too much gold to convert it to credits and leveling up and doing all that jazz, which I actually appreciate. It's not as bad as what it could be. Yeah. But it's also just not as good as it could be either. I think when they announced the token shop, right? We were all super excited. Like, oh man, finally a way to get new cards that we want. We're going to get tokens from collectors reserves and then use those to get the new cards that we want. That's awesome. And then we got it. And then we realized how stingy they were with all of them. And that if you're not even out of pool 3, you're only getting 100 collectors tokens every other, 4 collectors reserves or something like that.
Yeah. It's like every 3 or 4 reserves. Yeah.
So I think overall, again, it's not as bad as what it could be, but it is incredibly stingy. And it's also incredibly expensive, which has been a problem that myself, Nate, and several of the people in the circles that we run in have brought up time and time again. The variants range between $10 to $20, depending on how you get them. The bundles have been insanely overpriced, $30 and up. I've seen several. We've seen $300 or $400 bundles. So the pricing is just outrageous. And again, we've said on this podcast, I think the first episode, I've never wailed so hard in a game before as I have in this one. And we're going to talk about our experiences a little bit with that. So Nate, let me kick it to you, man, and just kind of let you share your thoughts on just the Marvel Snap economy as a whole and what you think of it.
Well, I think, it's like you said, when we've talked about this, one of the important things is that at its base level, the sort of, they do not MTX you to death, and the game never becomes sort of pay to win. Because, and a lot of that has to do with balancing and everything else. But frankly, especially with these bundles, at first I was like, okay, this feels decent, but they're rolling these bundles out at a pretty brisk pace. There's a fairly stiff amount of gold associated. And I think the biggest problem is that gold, as sort of like the premium currency that you actually buy, and you can earn it through the battle pass, it doesn't go very far at all. Yeah. And then it's like you said, they're stingy with the collector's tokens. And it's just like, to me personally, this is like, I think they should do away with the collector's tokens, make it so that you still have like the card shop, and just make that strictly a credits purchase. Right. And people are like, well, what then you can just throw premium currency, or you can throw gold at this. You keep the same safeguards in place that you can only redeem gold for credits so many times in a 24-hour period, and I think like, here's the part that kind of bothers me the most about it is that some of these bundles, like, you and I were actually talking about the Daredevil and Elektra and the Scarlet Witch Vision bundles. Yeah. Didn't give you any credits, so you can't advance the cards. They give you these variants, and then they give you a title, and they give you some player artwork icon sort of stuff. And they were charging what was it, $40?
Yeah, it was 3,200 gold, which would be right around that. Yeah.
And so I'm looking at that and I'm saying, this is not worth $40. And especially with no collector's tokens and no credits involved. So I look at that and I'm like, I really like this variant. If you brought that down to $20, I'd probably snap it up. But it's like, and I think too, what's really so there's that, but then there's just, it's really disappointing with, frankly, the fact that you have all these beautiful variants, And that could be like the big sort of like, I've bought gold just to buy variants.
Yeah.
And like, you can keep me in that loop without like killing me with this $100 mega bundle just so I can get 3,000 collector's tokens.
Yeah.
Like, and I haven't pulled the trigger on the bigger bundles. Like that's just like, that's too rich for my blood, man. But, I just kind of like, they've overcomplicated it. And then they've made it just sort of, I actually feel like I'm at, I think 3,200, 3,250 as far as collector level. So I'm fairly up there. Yeah. And I feel like I just feel like they're kind of being stingy with cards. Overall, it's not the worst thing in the world. And maybe I'm just sort of arguing from like, or sort of griping from a position where it's like, oh, I just want the things that I want. And, and it's like, but I also think like it's starting to feel like the way that it's set up right now, it does feel a little exploitative. I mean, the best value in the game is going to be your battle pass. Like when the new battle pass drops, you can pretty much get your money back in gold. You get a you get the new card, so.
And I will say they did make an improvement on the season pass, at least for February, and including, like more variants and a couple more things that we were wanting, like the gold and things like that, which was really nice. But I agree with you that I think, and especially I think we probably wouldn't feel this way as much if the opening to this game when you first get in wasn't so like getting and unlocking things left and right. Like when you first start the game, and you're going through the tutorial and you're going through the beginner stuff, like you are unlocking stuff at a rapid pace, left and right. You're getting cards here and there. You're leveling up your collection rank. You're getting boosters. You're boosting up your cards, and then once you get out of pool 1 and 2 and into pool 3, then it kind of slows to a crawl. And pool 3 is just agonizing. Depending on what cards you get and what cards you don't get. It is wild. There's times where you might get a lucky draw in a collector's reserve, like you get Galactus, right? But then you have none of the cards to go with them to make them effective in a deck. Or you have all these other cards that are really great together, but you're missing, the big finish, right? And so it can be a pain. And, that's one of the things that I do like about Second Den, the developers, that they are listening to this feedback and making changes. And they have said that they're going to be making changes to, the token shop and trying to make that a better experience for everyone. But I just remember reading, I think it was, I don't want to miscredit it to anybody, but I want to say I remember reading something, and it might've been Ben Brode, it might've been something else, but in the Marvel Snap Discord, that they didn't want people to get cards too quickly because they didn't want people to drop off. And I'm sitting there thinking, while reading that, I'm like, man, if you were to give me all the cards, right? Like I'm already hooked playing this game. I've got pretty much the cards that I want. I'm still playing it on a regular basis just because it's so much fun. I'm constantly bouncing from different styles of decks to play the game. I don't really see the problem in giving people easier access to the cards as it being detrimental to the game. It might lose some players, right? But I think if they continue down this route that we're currently on, where they're stingy with the cards, they're stingy with the collector's tokens, they're stingy with the credits, they're stingy with the gold, and everything just being so expensive, I think that's going to have a more detrimental effect than it would be if you were to just make it easier for people to get the cards. Kind of like what you were doing with the credits. I actually like that idea a lot, in just doing that. But what are your kind of thoughts on that? I feel like you have something to add there.
Well, I think, like, if I'm being honest, I think what ought to happen is that when you hit like collector level 3,000, you should at that point in time, all of the, like, they should prioritize Series 3. And I'm saying, like, there should be like a hard cap that, like, at some point in time, like, you hit a power level, you will have, and frankly, I think it ought to be significantly lower. I think it probably ought to be like collector level 2,000, all of Series 3. And then, because they're adding new cards with a fair amount of frequency and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And like series 3 is where or pull 3 or whatever you want to call it. That's where the game really, there's a lot of like the really interesting plays can be like, that's where you can really get kind of like pretty wild with deck building. So I think, and I think frankly, they're underestimating the just what they've got. It's right before we started, actually right as we started recording, I was like, I looked at you and I said, I just bought a variant, and and I think it's like, dude, like that's where you can like, you offer good variants. You sort of keep those sort of rotating through the shop, and like people are going to like the Dan Hip variants. We were talking about those earlier. They're beautiful. Like
They're
that
so
can
awesome.
be your moneymaker. Like, dude, like those can be your moneymakers, and don't feel the need to just completely gut your customers. Like people love your game. They're not going to drop off. The thing is like whoever said that, like, we don't want to give too many cards because we're afraid people will drop off. Like, listen, the game is solid enough that if you're relying on people's like sort of having that constant like dopamine hit, and so like, oh, new card, oh, new card, oh, new card, and you think they're going to kind of burn out, I think you're underestimating your own product. Like, the reason I continue to play Marvel Snap is because it's a freaking it is one of the best designed card games I've played in a long time. Yeah. And I'm just like, and the reason I stick around isn't because you keep feeding me cards. It's actually, that actually is it's like you were saying, like, I'm actually started to get like a little frustrated. Like, now this week, we talked in the last episode, I finally pulled Electro and I finally got She-Hulk, but it's like, and I'm looking at that and I'm saying like, actually waiting for them was a bigger drag than, I don't know. Like, I feel like sometimes it's like, I don't know that they necessarily know what they have. And again, and like I said, I personally, I think like having 3 currencies is a little confusing. It creates sort of this unnecessary sort of like, now there's this third thing you have to keep track of. I mean, you and I have talked before about this, and basically my idea would be like, all boosters are universal boosters. You don't have boosters for cards anymore. You just have like, just every match you get 7 boosters or 10 boosters. Like if you win, you get 10. If you lose the match, you get 5, whatever. I don't know. Or just get 10 boosters every match. Who cares? But then
because they're boosters,
and like, but then it's basically credits can be used to buy everything in the game. And I would say like, people are like, well, what would you rate cards at? And I'd say, okay. Cause you can get a fair amount of credits pretty quickly. I'd say like series 3 cards, make them like 2,500 credits, because like, and that's a fairly significant, that's like, that's you're losing a lot of like power-ups, like, leveling up your cards.
And when you think about it too, sorry to interject, but if you do your weeklies, like your daily challenge, that you hit the 5 and the 10 and the 15, the 20, that kind of thing. Because I think through that you can get close to 900 to maybe 1,000, probably a little around 1,000, if not a little bit over, by the time you do all those. So you'd get a little over 1,000 in a week. My math is probably wrong on that.
If you're doing your dailies, right? And I think it's like, is it 50? It's like 100 for your normals.
150 every 6 hours, 8 hours, something
like that. So it's like you could feasibly probably get a new card, a series 3 card, like once a week. And like, that's going to be, I don't think that's too fast. I think that's actually like a really good clip. I don't know. There's something in there where it's like, I don't have all the answers there. I just have like ideas. And I just think like, it's like still like, and dude, like make your, like your big nasties like Thanos and Galactus, make them like 20,000 credits or something. I don't know. Like the series 6 stuff is like just astronomical. But if it pops up in the shop at that point in time too, like, because like, listen, you and I were talking, Shadow King is in my token shop right now. He's what is that 6,000 tokens?
6,000. Yeah, he's a
And it's
Series
like,
5.
I'm never getting anywhere close to that. But
Yeah.
like, you throw like, let's just say the Series 5 cards like Shadow King, like, okay, they're 15,000 tokens.
Mm-hmm.
Like at that point in time, it's like, especially like you know that you could probably have him in a couple of weeks.
Yeah. I even went ahead and did the math just now. If you were to do the weekly stuff, like hit the, 5 challenges done, 10 challenges, so on and so forth, just in that week alone, you'd have 1,500 credits, right? On top of the credits that you were getting if you complete them all. If you were to go that route where let's say the Series 5 cards are the 20,000, let's say 15 to 20,000, right? You could feasibly get that. I mean, it would take several weeks, but I think that would probably feel a little bit better than the system that we have now.
Because the collector's tokens, you never get them, even with the battle pass.
They're so scarce.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that frustrated me. I remember tweeting out about this, that I'm out of pool 3. And so I shouldn't be getting 100 collector's tokens out of a collector's reserve. It's so deflating when you only get 100 because these things are so expensive. It's like, this feels like I have to buy these expensive bundles with the credits in or with the tokens in them to get anywhere, and it just doesn't really feel that good. It feels just gross. If I'm being honest, I think what I would do is, as you're raising your collection level, take the boosters out and replace that with 100 collector's tokens. And then like, if we're going to keep the collector's tokens, I'm saying, that kind of
get
route.
rid of like the titles and the freaking,
yes.
Get rid of the title.
I wish in the shop, they would just take the titles and the avatars out of the collector's chests and put them in the shop and make them just 50 credits a piece. If you want one, there it is. If it's one of the bigger Marvel characters, make it 100 to 200 credits.
You could even make them like 500 gold. And that way, if there's like a character that you want that portrait, or if there's a title you want, like there you go. There's like a non-exploitative sort of like micro transaction that like is giving people like the things that they kind of want. Every time like I pop open a collector's cache and I get a freaking title, I want to tear my hair out.
It's like an avocado. Thanks.
Pretty much. It's like, that's exactly the energy. It's like, oh, okay. And like I said, it doesn't have to be that way, and what I will say is that, you hit it too. They have been really responsive with criticism. And I mean, a few episodes ago, we talked about the Zabu surfer nerf. And they're sort of like, last episode we talked about the Sandman buff. Like they're listening. And I think one of the biggest things here is, I think if people just take some time and they say, hey, we need to figure out some better solutions that people like, because that is the biggest problem with the way the system is set up now, is it actually burns me out, because it's like, here's this card that I want. I'm going to pin it in the shop, and then it's going to take me 3 weeks to get the tokens for it,
if not longer,
depending
on how the drops are. Yeah.
I want and here's the thing. I'm kind of like, I'll buy the battle pass. Like I'll buy variants. I will give them money. But like when you're like, hey, here's $100 bundle, I'm like, nah, get stuffed, get bent.
Yeah.
And especially
let me just say this as someone who did buy $100 bundle, and oh my gosh, I feel like throwing up every time I just think about it. It's honestly not worth it. It really isn't. And to even add to this, I've watched several YouTubers, like Marvel Snap creators, who said like, I spent $100 or even more than that in the game to buy credits and level up my collection level. Let's open up all these chests and see what I get. And they get literally garbage for 100 levels, or just 50 boxes, or however much they stored up. And it's just like, it shouldn't be that way. That doesn't feel good. It kind of de-incentivizes you from really just leveling up or opening those things or doing anything, because it just doesn't feel good. It's not
those
fun.
Collector caches ought to be like, I'm not saying everyone needs to just like come out and slap, but you get that you get one of them every 3 levels, right?
Well, yeah, every 3 levels, which is what, 8 to 12 levels, I think.
It's like, it's like 10 points or 12. Yeah, whatever. The whole collection thing is like, I just like watching the bar go up. But so, but like those should feel really, for the most part, really good. Like, like throw some cool variants in there, throw new cards in there. Be a little more, I feel like even there, it's like, just be a little more generous with your player base, because here's the deal. Like, I think like the people who are really into your game, like, and you guys are constantly rolling out new cards, you're constantly rolling out new variants. Those are going to be,
I was going to add in, we've got this data mine here from MarvelSnapZone.com, and just all the variants that they have in here is just an insane amount that they're adding in for these different cards, like Nightcrawler, Sabretooth, Sunspot, Spider-Man, Groot. Like, you could easily up the percentage of variants that you get in the collector's cache, and you still even wouldn't get all of them, because they're constantly adding in like 50 of these things every month. There's so many of them.
It's starting to like, my big concern is that their marketplace is starting to feel exploitative, and it's like it's the thing that's burning me out. If anything, I said to you, like, I was super stoked to get Electro, right? But it was like one of those things that I've been saving tokens for like a week and a half for that dude. And that I mean, he dropped into cash, which was, I was like, okay, this is sick. This is awesome. So now I've got like those tokens to like those moments, I think, should happen a little bit more frequently. And again, you've got a really great game. You've got a really great product. Like people love it based on basically the technicality of the game, but also play to your strengths here, man. Like this other stuff, like, I know we're not the only ones saying stuff like this.
That's one thing I would be very interested to see, is kind of the data between how many people bought like the $100 Mr. Negative bundle versus the Chinese New Year Jubilee bundle that they put out. That was like, what, $5, I think, for that bundle. You get the variants and credits and all that. I'm very curious to see kind of what the numbers are between that. But that's the thing that worries me, and I can't really say anything because I'm fed into the machine, so to speak, is, maybe the reason they're keeping these bundles around is because people keep buying them, and they can charge the $100, and people keep buying them, and that's why they keep doing them. And I mean, it is what it is, right? That's capitalism. You just do whatever you want, charge whatever you want. And I mean, that's their right. But man, they have to do some kind of tweaking to make the overall experience of unlocking stuff a little bit better. I would even be up for them doing like variant sales, maybe like one weekend out of the summer. Not summer. Well, maybe a couple weekends out of the summer, or one weekend a month or something for, let's say, a 6 to 12 hour period. You can get like these, you can get like 2 bundles for the price of 1, or 3 bundles for the price of 2, or something like that.
All the variants that are in your shop for the next like week are half off. Do it like once a year. Like, I mean, there are things there that they can do that will actually feel good for the customer and benefit them. So and again, I'm just saying, like, me personally, that the biggest thing for me is like, man, just decomplicate, like uncomplicate, simplify. That's the word I'm actually looking for. Simplify your store. Get rid of the token collection stuff, like the token thing, and just find like a decent sort of like scaling economy that actually lets people feel like they're making significant progress towards getting the cards that they want.
Yep. I agree. So with that being said, listeners, let us know your experience with the economy within Marvel Snap, what you think of it, your thoughts, maybe some changes you would make as well. Let's continue the conversation on YouTube or in Discord or on Twitter as well. But speaking of variants, one of the things that was brought up in the TRG Discord a while back was me and Nate just looking at a series of variants and going, oh, yes, very nice, and then moving along, just without skipping a beat.
All right.
And so, Nate, I haven't pulled up any variants. I will edit this in and post. But let's just pretend like we have a variant pulled up right now, and it's just one of the most beautiful things we've ever seen in the game. And then hopefully I will put one in the video that's actually worth looking at and saying, oh yes, very nice. Okay. So let's pretend, Nate, it's up on the screen right now. What's your initial reaction?
It's beautiful. Very nice.
Gorgeous. Truly magnificent.
10 out of 10.
I would snap on this, and I would probably spend not just 1,200 gold, but 2,400. It's that beautiful.
That's a little rich for my blood, but
a little bit.
I feel you on that. It's definitely like
so gorgeous. Wow, amazing. Well done. All right,
wow.
Let's start rounding.
Wow.
let's rounding out. Let's round out the show here with our card highlight, the section where we highlight a card from pool 1, 2, or 3, and just talk about why we like it. Why are we even bringing it up? Let's go with that. Nate, what card did you bring to the show today?
Yeah, and I talked about him a little bit last episode. I'm going to bring up my boy, the Collector, man.
Yes, very good card.
We've talked about and he has synergy with one of my favorite cards of all time, Devil Dino. Basically, Collector gets an additional 1 power for every card that comes into your hand that you did not draw from your deck. Right. So he's got really great synergy with cards like Beast, all of the shield cards pretty much. So Agent 13, Maria, Agent Coulson, Maria Coulson. Listen, we're
shipping those. We're shipping those two characters.
I'm talking about my headcanon here. It's a little bit of a Freudian slip. But no, so Coulson, all of that stuff. He works really nicely. We talked about his utility in the discard meta right now, where you can pair him with Swarm and the Helicarrier, and if you can get rid of those, get those out of your hand, he's gonna get a nice healthy little bump.
Nick Fury even
Nick Fury's a great one for that. So he's one of those cards that I like the premise. He doesn't. One of the things I've been really stoked about this with the introduction of Nate Talk Pretty Someday, not today. But with the introduction of MODOK, right? We've seen the Collector can get just absolutely explosive. And while I love to watch those numbers go up, I think it's just cool. And what's really cool about it is it's not an ongoing ability. So you can't Enchantress out of it. The only counter is if you get him really gnarly big, somebody can Shang-Chi him. But I'm you can't stop the Collector, baby. Get on that.
You can't stop the Collector, baby. That's awesome, man. Well, my card then is one you actually mentioned that works really well and synergizes well with the Collector, and that is Agent Coulson, a card that I got recently mentioned that in the last episode, and I thought Agent Coulson would be just a dumb card. That's why I never went for him, But now that I've used him a couple times, both in synergy with the Collector, but also just in my deck that I call the Birthday Bounce House because it's a bounce deck, and he's a really good card. He's a 3-cost 4 power, and he pulls in or adds to your hand a 4-cost and a 5-cost card. So, I mean, that alone is pretty good and can change up how you play the rest of the game and might even lead to you winning. Agent Coulson, I gotta say, I slept on him, man. I really was missing out and kind of missed how good of a card he is. As Nate has cautioned, though, he might give you some stinkers. He might give you no, Orca's a 6-cost. I was going to make a joke there. But he might give you some bad cards that just don't work. But really, I think most of the time he gives you some decent cards that you can work into your play style, and he's just a good kind of wild card. And who knew? And Agent Coulson has some really dope variants too. There's one where he's dressed up like a warrior with Captain America's shield.
His base card though is kind of dopey.
It's doofy. It's really doofy. Yeah. It's not. It is not good. he looks like a robot chicken character, but like one of the like side characters you see in the background, or one of the ones that gets blown up during the episode.
Phil needs a glow up. Come on.
He does.
Phil needs a glow up.
He does. So. Yeah. I'm just waiting for the day that an Agent Coulson variant shows up in my shop so I can rotate that out. I will pay the money for it because, like, my gosh, it is bad.
Give me the variant.
I need something to make him look better. It's the same problem I had with Black Widow for the longest time. And then I got a nullified version of her. And now I'm like, this isn't any better. This is just kind of terrifying. So the nullified version of the cards are just kind of scary looking, to be honest. I don't know why they're there. But yeah, that is one of our favorite cards for this episode. You let us know on the YouTube comments or in social media what your favorite cards are as well, and let us know. But that brings us to the end of another Snapchatter podcast. Nate, man, I secretly hope that by the time this episode releases on public feeds, Second Dinner does some crazy changes to where we have to scrap this entire episode and then release a whole new one.
Just come back and redo it.
Yeah, just redo the whole thing. Or we just release this one and then do what?
Just sing their praises.
Sing their praises, yeah. Or we'll just release this one anyway and then do a follow-up episode. We're like, you know what? Last episode, we didn't know what we were talking about. We were wrong. Thank you, Second Dinner, for listening.
Yeah.
So there it is, but we'll see.
You know, kind of what I'm feeling, man? I'm feeling like, you know, we've sort of talked about this, and maybe I'm sneaking this in a little bit. I want to throw out a bit of a challenge to the listeners, right? And we talked about, we have the segment Snap or Tap, right? Listeners, feel free to send us the Snap or Tap scenarios. Like, you know, I'd love to hear like the plays that you think like are going to like scare us off or like make us double down, man.
Tell you what, let's do that. By the time this episode releases, I'll put it on Twitter. And we'll talk about it, and we'll start pulling them from there, and then we'll include those in a future episode. But yeah. Speaking of, if you want to follow us on Twitter, you can do so. Twitter.com/SnapchatterPod. If you're watching this on YouTube, just hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. We'll put the poll up over there as well in the community tab. I believe we have access to the community tab over there on YouTube. If not, then check out Twitter. But we'll have that over there as well. Nate, where can our listeners find you at?
If you want to like sort of listen to me like sort of rant and rave about Iceman and Scorpion from time to time, like the place to do it is just look for Nate_McKeever and pretty much all the social media stuff and all the game stuff too. So
Yep. Same thing for me, except you won't find me at Nate_McKeever. You will find me at the Theo Logan. You can find me on Twitter. You can find me on Marvel Snap. You can find me all across the internet with that username. You'll typically, if you see, you'll see my face. You'll know it's me. Trust me. I'll be the one just gushing about Thanos and Galactus. And even though I'm losing, it never gets old watching Galactus show up and reveal and say, kneel before Galactus. You hear the energy rays hitting the planet. It blows everything up. I could lose. I don't care. It's a great animation.
It is hands down the coolest animation in the game. Yeah.
There's a reason it's in our intro for this show.
Yeah. It's pretty slick. It's pretty slick, man.
Yep. But yeah, Snapchatters, as always, leave reviews on your podcast app of choice. We're on a variety of different platforms. Be sure to do that as well. But until next time, keep on snapping, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Yeah.